Hello. A very warm welcome to this European Climate Action Academy session on the fundamentals of youth climate leadership. I'm Chiara Savina, and I'm part of the European Climate Pact Secretariat, and I will be your moderator for today. We're really delighted to have you join us as we explore how young people are leading the way into climate actions across Europe and also beyond. But before we begin, I would like to remind you of a few housekeeping points. So I will kindly ask my colleague May, who's in charge of the slides today, to go indeed to the next slide. Thanks a lot, May. So a few points to keep in mind. So by default, all attendees' microphones and camera are off. However, you can use the slide or Q&A function to ask questions to the speaker. We will have a Q&A moment after the presentation from our speakers. You can also use the Slido Q&A function, not only to insert your question, but also you can vote what questions are the most relevant in your opinion. So use that function as well. Not only we have this function, but we also have some polls for you that will be launched. So please be ready to use Slido to participate. Also, I would like to remind you that this meeting and this session is being recorded, but everything, including the recording and the materials and the slides, will be shared with you afterwards. So this will be shared indeed after the session. Before we move ahead and we actually dive into the topic, I would like to briefly introduce you what is the European Climate Pact, for those of you who are not familiar with it. The Pact is an initiative that was indeed created by the European Commission under the European Green Deal, which brings people, communities, and organizations together to help the EU reach its goal of climate neutrality by 2050. It's actually a very vibrant community where you can learn, connect, and take meaningful climate action. You will find a lot of resources, such as, for instance, our citizen engagement quick start tools, also events taking place all over Europe, but also opportunities to become a climate pact ambassadors or partners and join activities across all EU member states. Actually, if you're not yet an ambassador or a partner, we have right now a call for new ambassadors and new partners to join us in this community. So we invite you to visit our website for more information how to become one. But okay, that's great. So before again we start into the topic, we actually have a couple of questions for you to sense a bit who do we have in the room and how familiar are you also with the topic of today. So we have two polls on Slido. So I invite you to go on slido.com indeed, or scan the QR codes that you see on the slides. And insert the hashtag indeed that you see also on the slide here on the left side. And you can actually reply to the first question. And the first question that we have for you is, in one word, what comes to mind when you hear climate leadership? We would really like to hear indeed what's in your mind before your session, and then to see indeed while we dive along the topic, how things change as well. I see some participants are typing already, so that's great. And first word is Greta, I think we know why. Responsibility, perseverance, politics as well, inspire. That's really, really important, I think, for a climate leader. Change and inspire seems to be the biggest ones, but we also have responsibility, which indeed is quite an important thing indeed when you are being a climate leader. Change as well, sustainability, advocacy. So a lot of words, which also means that being a climate leader entails a lot of different things. Engagement, indeed, engagement with the communities and citizens is actually very, very, very important as well, together with action too. Okay, maybe we can move ahead with the second question. We have another one, so you can still keep voting on Slido. This is a rating question. So here we want to ask you, on a scale from 1 to 5, how confident do you feel right now, so before the session, about taking a leadership role in climate action? And I see some answers already coming in. The average score is 3.1, so right in the middle, indeed. So that's, we hope to shift some of the scores towards the end of the session, more towards the number 5 here. But indeed, it seems like there is a solid 33% of people who are indeed voting for the number 3, so really in the average. But we have quite some 2 and also 4 and 5, which is great to see as well. Thanks a lot, really, for replying to these polls. It's great to indeed to see a bit who do we have in the virtual room. So, but let's indeed kickstart this session. And we would like to introduce our speakers and also telling you what we have lined up for you today. So first, we'll actually hear on the fundamentals of youth leadership, including important and challenges. Then we will also hear experience from our own Climate Pact ambassadors who are also youth leaders. And we will then wrap up the session with a Q&A session. So please keep your question coming via slide, or you can use the same Slido code indeed that you use for the polls. But now I'm very pleased to introduce our speakers. So first we have actually Diana Kaekebeke. She's a climate justice training capacity lead at CARE, Climate and Resilience Academy. And she joined together with her with a colleague Ellen Chigwanda, Senior Technical Advisor for Education and Climate Change at CARE Zimbabwe. We also have 2, indeed, Climate Pact ambassadors I was mentioning before, Aurora Audino, Senior Officer of Sustainable Energy for All, and as well Martin Velikchov, Climate Pact ambassador, of course, and co-president of Youth for a Green Future in Bulgaria. But without further ado, indeed, we can go to the next slide, May, and I would like to invite Diana to take the floor. And guide us through indeed the fundamentals of your leadership. So Diana, please, you can turn on your camera and unmute yourself.
Yes.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you, Chiara. And I'm very happy to be here with you and very happy that you're all joining us today to learn more about youth leadership in climate action. Over the next 50 minutes, together with my colleague Ellen, we will be talking about some of the challenges as well as the opportunities that young people in today's world have to lead in the fight against climate change. Also referring to an online toolkit for youth on adaptation and leadership that we developed at the CARE Climate Justice Center. I would like to kick us off by looking at the EU Youth Report from 2024, which shows that young people in the EU are increasingly more vocal about environmental issues, particularly climate change, which they see as the most pressing issue globally. This is a 50% increase compared to 2013. And as you can see in this graph, it illustrates that young people rank climate change as being a more serious problem than, for instance, poverty or armed conflicts or the economic situation, among other issues. In this next slide, and in the report, it's also shown that young people in the EU are increasingly getting involved in taking climate action. So almost 2/3 of young people in the EU have personally taken climate action or action to fight climate change in 2023. And again, this is an increase of almost 50% when comparing it to 2013. So that's great to see. And while it's clear that young people care about their future, and this was not the focus of the report, but evidence shows that young people are also disproportionately affected by the climate crisis, especially young women and girls. And climate change is reshaping the world that young people are due to inherit, and they will bear the costs in the coming decades. So engagement of young people is really crucial to ensure that climate, that choices and investments and interventions are responsive to the needs of young people. But unfortunately, they're also facing some challenges in climate action. You can see some of the challenges that we've listed here. These are, of course, not exhaustive, but to start with the first one, despite the motivation and the active engagement of young people, they often lack representation in high-level political or decision-making discussions. And they're often excluded from engaging in activities. So decision-making bodies at all levels often fail to create spaces for youth inputs. So they basically don't have a seat at the table, or there are really high costs attached. If you think, for instance, of the upcoming COP in Brazil, where accommodation costs are so high in Belém that this hinders inclusive participation. And this leads to another huge challenge, the one of financial constraints. So many youth-led organizations and grassroots organizations or initiatives struggle to implement and sustain climate projects or climate actions due to insufficient funding. Another challenge for young people is that they sometimes are not well versed in climate science and in the causes and consequences of climate change or the potential solutions. And they lack the capacity and therefore maybe also sometimes the interest to engage in climate conversations and climate actions. Also, there's a huge potential and need for green jobs, which contribute to environmental sustainability. And young people are also interested in taking up these positions. But this means that education and training institutions and systems must be set up to equip young people with the right skill sets. Climate change has also has a negative impact on our mental health. So young people are experiencing a variety of climate-related emotions and feelings, such as climate anxiety or eco-anxiety, or climate grief, climate guilt. And this manifests itself in tangible ways, affecting a sense of security by young people and hope for the future, but also feelings of paralysis and inaction. Young people are also economically more vulnerable. They have to work for a living. So they have to prioritize employment over activism. And it's also difficult to engage for them in unpaid climate action efforts. And in the EU, as well as in the rest of the world, in certain regions, cultural and social norms restrict the participation of especially young women and girls in climate action. So these social and institutional barriers limit their involvement and leadership opportunities in environmental initiatives, while we actually know that women are leading the way towards a more sustainable future. And then lastly, while the majority of young people are on the internet daily, and the digital platforms also offer avenues for climate activism, there are still some disparities in access to technology and digital literacy, and this can limit participation. So youth in less connected areas can still face challenges in leveraging online tools for climate advocacy. Because of these challenges and limited youth participation, this can result in creating climate policies and designing climate action strategies that fail to address the needs and the concerns of young people. And this is why at CARE, and to address some of these issues, in 2023, we developed a freely available toolkit for youth on adaptation and leadership. It consists of 8 modules, as you can see here on the slide, and it offers practical guidance for how you as a young person can increase your knowledge and your understanding of climate change and its impact, how you can take part in adaptation policy processes or lead advocacy campaigns, and how you can approach adaptation with an entrepreneurial mindset. Next slide, please. The toolkit is available online, and it was designed with mobile in mind. Each module has a lot of interactive content, including online courses or text resources, infographics, quizzes, many links and references to additional online resources and case studies. And the toolkit is available in 3 languages, Arabic, English, and French. And again, it provides tools for designing and implementing your own actions so that you can be part of the climate the solution to the climate crisis. And here you see a playful summary of the first module, and each module has a similar summary, which you can also use to deliver capacity strengthening to youth organizations or to your peers to demonstrate your leadership. The toolkit can be accessed at any time. You can start with module 1 and then make your way through consecutively, but you can also just jump to the module that interests you most. And I would now like to pass on to my colleague, Ellen, who will zoom in on module 5 of the Youth Toolkits.
Thank you so much, Diana. Can you hear me? Hi, yes. Everyone. Thank you. Hi, everyone. My name is Ellen Chigwanda, and I'm based in our Harare office in Zimbabwe. It's such a pleasure to be here and to be sharing this space with you in relation to youth leadership fundamentals around climate change. I will start by just providing an overview of Module 5. So Module 5, as Diana has already mentioned, is one of 8 modules from the toolkit that we designed in partnership with many other partners. And in fact, it included youth from other parts of the world who contributed to the development of this work. And this module is really designed to equip young people, such as yourselves, with the important skills to become an effective leader in adaptation. So before we go much further into the discussion, I would like to move on to a slide or question. So please use the function, your Slido function, to answer who inspires you. Think of a young climate leader who inspires you, and what characteristic about them do you find especially inspiring? It'll be interesting to see some of the contributions. So Greta has come up. I know she came up in the previous question about, what one word can you use to describe climate leadership? Greta, and there are a few others also coming in. Some of the characteristics include bravery, consistency. I can see bravery keeps coming up. Passion is an important one. Determination, courage, empathy, and I can see other leaders, Al Gore, Julian. This is all very interesting. I'm really fascinated to know that you are already sort of in tune with some of the key leading figures around climate action, and that you have already conceptualized some of the characteristics that are important to you. I think, as I mentioned earlier, some of the dominant ones include consistency, bravery, courage, integrity, determination, commitment, knowledge, and empowerment. And it's actually interesting that some of these characteristics will form part of our conversation today. So thank you so much for all of your contributions to this question. I'm going to move us along to now talk about what leadership involves. So as you can see there, we do have a picture of Greta speaking at a climate strike in Berlin in 2019. So what does leadership involve? And I know many of you will already have some answers from other experiences, but leadership involves social influence, basically ensuring that the work of others contributes towards achieving a defined goal. But leadership also involves taking risks and challenging the status quo to achieve specific outcomes. As part of the leadership process, it's important to set and accomplish a goal, And this involves the ability to think about a future you wish to see and to contribute to that particular future. So now I would like us to move on to talk about some of the characteristics of a good leader. And I'm glad that through the Slido question, you've already identified some of the 10 that we had included there. And of course, this is not an exhaustive list. I think your list is even longer than ours, which is very good to see. So we've included integrity, which I think I saw in one of your, on the Slido responses. We have delegation, communication came up, self-awareness, I think came up also as part of empowerment, gratitude, learning agility, influence, empathy came up in the Slido question, courage came up, and respect as well. So these are very important characteristics of a good leader. And I'd now like to talk about 3 of these, just to highlight those 3. This does not mean that these are the most important, but I just wanted us to shine the light on those 3 so that we can understand what they mean. So I'll talk firstly about communication. Just before we move on to that slide. Yes, so I wanted to say a little bit about communication and just say that communication is your ability to impart information or to share information using various media. So, this can be in the form of written pieces, this can be in the form of visuals. And I know as young people, you are very techno-savvy, you have different ways of communicating information. So that is an important skill that a good leader should possess. I also want to talk about influence, and influence is your ability to, get someone else to buy into your ideas. Is the set of behaviors that, help you or to advance a certain idea or a certain, action around climate change, and that ability to have others buy into the issues that you are working on as young people. And then lastly, I wanted to shine the light on courage. Courage is an important characteristic to have as a good leader, particularly in the climate space, because this is a highly political issue. This is a contemporary issue, and it's an issue that is affecting many parts of our development as young people. And so courage really refers to that willpower to do something that would have been otherwise intimidating or frightening. So as young people, as young leaders, it's definitely a characteristic to have. Now would like to move on to some of the key skills and how to strengthen those skills. So I'm just going to highlight some of those skills and share a little bit about how we can develop those skills as young people and how we can strengthen them. I'm going to start us off with negotiation. And negotiation is an important skill to possess as a young climate leader. As you can imagine, there are numerous situations where you may need to negotiate your way as far as the climate space is concerned. One example is when you're speaking to your local government representative about adaptation solutions that you want to see implemented. Certainly, when you speak to high-level officials, negotiation is an important skill as you negotiate for space, as you negotiate for their time, as you negotiate for even resources associated with your climate adaptation plans. A second example is when you're speaking to a local non-governmental organization about funding for a project that engages youth in your community on climate change. So certainly you need to take out your negotiation skills as you really try to convince them why they should support your work, as you convince them about why the outcomes of your work are important, not only to you individually, but to youth as a collective, and also more importantly, to the community at large. In the next slide, I'm going to show you some of the steps that are involved in an effective negotiation process. So essentially, for you to negotiate effectively, these are some of the steps that you would need to take. So we've included the 6 steps that can help you to navigate a negotiation process. Step number one would be to prepare for the negotiation, and preparation for negotiation involves, you know, a number of different things. Much like you'd prepare for anything else, you need to make sure that you have understood your issue. You need to make sure that you have understood who your audience are, who is it that you're targeting with the negotiation. This will help you to prepare any talking points that are relevant. So if you're speaking to a government official, it may look a little bit different from when you're speaking to the private sector, than when you're speaking to a non-governmental organization, than when you're speaking to maybe a youth network. So it's important to prepare for the negotiation so that you understand your audience, you understand the issue, but more importantly, you also prepare those talking points that help you to navigate the negotiation process. After the preparatory process, you would need to actually open the negotiation. So opening the negotiation essentially means establishing contact with the targeted people or person that you would like to negotiate with. So if it's government, it means making sure that you've made an appointment. Government officials are very particular about ensuring that you've made an appointment and that you've set up the necessary platform in order for you to make that connection. So establishing connection is important in that you would need the networks and the contact details of the people that you wish to communicate with or that you wish to negotiate with. Conducting the negotiation is basically then means coming to the table and bringing the issues around climate change that you would like to negotiate with your particular audience. Conducting the negotiation means that you need to actually bring yourself in, whether physically or online, depending on how this has been set up. But essentially, it's the actual process of bringing out all of those issues that you'd like to communicate with the various stakeholders. As part of the negotiation, the drive is to ensure that we are moving towards an agreement based on on the issues that we would like to bring to the fore. Moving towards an agreement ensures that we are reaching that goal. Remember earlier on when we talked about leadership being a process where you are achieving a desired goal. When you go into a negotiation, you essentially have a goal. Either you are negotiating for a certain amount, or you are negotiating for time on a particular program to talk about your work as youth leaders, or you're negotiating for something else. And so how can you make sure that, as part of the negotiation process, you are actually moving towards an agreement of what, that goal that you're trying to achieve as part of that engagement? And then, of course, actually reaching the goal. And sometimes you may not reach your goal 100%, but you may have to find yourself kind of, reflecting on your goal and trying to decide what are some of the non-negotiables and what are some of those parts of your what you've brought to the table that can be negotiated so that you end up with a win-win situation with your audience. After the negotiation, it's important to follow up and to make sure that you are in continuous contact with your targeted stakeholder so that at the end of the day, you can collectively act upon the agreements that would have come out of that negotiation process. We'll now move on to another skill, which is the elevator pitch. This is very important for a young climate leader to have an elevator pitch or to have the skills to develop one. Now, an elevator pitch is a short speech that tells people who you are, what you do, and why it's important. It also communicates what solutions you are offering and what you aim to achieve with your product, your campaign, or your action plan. Now, an elevator pitch, much as the name suggests, you want to use it to quickly capture someone's attention and secure the interest for further discussions. Imagine going into an elevator, you're going from the ground floor to the 4th floor. So you essentially have a few seconds, 20 seconds, 30 seconds, in order to capture your audience and to communicate what is important, what you're about, and the solutions that you're bringing to that conversation. I will now share a little bit about what are some of those elements that you need to include in your elevator pitch. So essentially, this would be a concise, basic description of your climate change adaptation solution, campaign, or business proposition. And it would also include an indication of the need or growing demand for what you are proposing. It's always good, of course, to make sure that you include any statistics or evidence that you will have gathered as part of your preparation and wider reading and engagement with the topic. Your pitch should also include an understanding of the value of your solution, campaign, or business, and what value that campaign or business brings to the community at large. And then lastly, you need to bring into the elevator pitch a positive impression of you and your team, and an indication of your expertise. In other words, the elevator pitch should help someone to understand why you are the best people for the activity. Next slide, please. So these are some of the key success factors, and you will see that some of these we've already sort of referred to them, but it's important to just highlight these key success factors for an elevator pitch. Know who you are talking to before you start. We kind of talked about that during the when I talked about negotiation. It's part of preparation. Know who you are talking to before you start your elevator pitch. In some cases, of course, you will meet people randomly, which is why it's important to have prepared in advance so that in case you do meet those targets, you are able to share your elevator pitch. It's important to practice, and to practice. You can never practice too much because an elevator pitch can be the determining factor, can be what stands between you and your action plans. And so it's important to practice it and make sure you yourself are convinced by what you're trying to convince others to do. If people are asking you recurring questions, this shows that the pitch, there's something missing, and therefore you need to revise it and respond to those areas of inquiry or those questions that keep coming up as you're delivering your elevator pitch. It's important to have various versions of your elevator pitch. Like I mentioned, sometimes you are literally going from the ground floor to the fourth floor. And so you need a short 1 to 2 minute version ready for networking events and impromptu meetings, and possibly a much shorter version than that for shorter interactions. And then you can then have a longer version, which can be about 5 minutes, which is ready for longer pitch events and opportunities that arise where you are able to actually speak as part of a pre-planned event. It's also important after you've delivered your elevator pitch to exchange contacts. So in this digital world, I know some people will have QR codes on their phones that include their contact details and email addresses and other such. And in places where business cards are still being used, that is also an opportunity to exchange contacts so that you can then have an opportunity to follow up, to provide more details about your adaptation solution, campaign, or business. I'll now move on to talk about facilitation. Facilitation is another skill that a good leader should have, because there will be many opportunities where you will need to take out facilitation skills out of your toolbox and use them as part of your campaign or your business or your action plans, adaptation action plans. So some of the important critical success factors include having sufficient expertise. So as a young leader, it's important for you to continue to engage with the latest evidence, researches, conversations and debates around climate change, and those can be found widely in on the web, in libraries and in other places. There are many sources of information that you can use in order to make sure that you continue to sharpen your expertise. We've already talked about communication and why it's important for you to be a good communicator so that you're able to impart or share information as relevant for a particular audience in the pursuit of a particular goal in this space. It's also important to be organized. Organization is an important skill for a leader. So organization means basically being prepared, as we discussed earlier with negotiation, making sure that in advance of any facilitation process, you've invested enough time in planning whatever activities that you're going to implement, and also in understanding who the participants will be so that your facilitation process can run smoothly. It's important to apply an analytical mind. When you look at climate change, it's a very complex concept and theme. And so it's important to be able to use your analytical mind to connect climate to many themes that are associated with your target audience. One day you could be talking about climate change and education. Another day it might be climate change and food security. Another day, it might be climate change and how it's affecting young people. So as relevant, it's important to really understand the different dimensions of climate change and how it connects to our young people's lives more broadly. Being innovative and a lifelong learner is also important for facilitation. That means that you are understanding that whilst you're facilitating, you are bringing something to the table, but it's also possible for you to take away something from that process. In other words, you are contributing, but you are also learning. Be a good listener and observer. Observation is a very important skill, and so is learning. Observation enables you to watch some of the non-verbal cues, particularly if it's an in-person event, so that you can adapt your facilitation process in response to some of the either feedback that you're getting or some of the observations that you will have made. A self-evaluator, so continuously evaluating your methods and understanding how relevant they are to the process. And of course, adaptability is very important for this process so that it can run smoothly. Next slide, please. So before I hand over to Diane, I'm just going to share a little bit about CARE's leadership skills development model, which we call the Power Within competency model. And this framework was basically designed for adolescents and youth to build the necessary leadership, life skills, and resilience needed to navigate the challenges of an ever-changing world. Now, if you look at the graphic, it starts off in purple there with the foundation of well-being. We at CARE believe that if young people are able to, practice self-care and are able to really look after themselves and invest in themselves at an individual level, that will prime them or prepare them for different opportunities that come their way in order to exercise and develop leadership skills. So this model has 3 pillars. The first pillar is strong self-image. The second pillar is strong mind. And the last one is strong voice. Under self-image, we are essentially looking at how you view yourself as a young leader. So focusing on competencies such as perseverance. I think this came up on the slide, the question around characteristics. Also focusing on self-value, but I also wanted to focus on visioning as a competency. Visioning basically involves you being able to see a future that you want, a future that you desire, and to be able to see what steps need to be taken from today into that future and what you as a young person are bringing into that conversation. So it's recognizing your own set of skills, experiences, and ideas as part of self-image that can help you to contribute to something bigger. Strong mind, there are competencies which include critical thinking. I think I did talk about, having an analytical mind that's closely linked to critical thinking, being someone who's decisive and able to make decisions, and also situational analysis, having that ability to look around you and understand what the issues are and to be able to then translate those issues into a practical action plan that can be implemented both at individual and collective level. And then in terms of strong voice essentially means, creating the ground, or creating a fertile ground for being able to exercise your leadership skills. So this includes organization, coming together, mobilizing other young people, planning, looking at the evidence and drawing out what might work for you. Interpersonal communication, as you can see, is transversing across all of the different skills that I talked about today. And then self-advocacy, being able to, contribute to an advocacy goal based on, the evidence and, the coming together of young people and the ideas that you have around climate issues and the actions that are required from you. And we combine all this with the technical knowledge. We know that as young people, you are always learning. Some of you are getting diplomas, some of you are getting degrees, some of you are, getting, all sorts of, knowledge from different places. How can we combine that with some of these competencies in order to ensure that you can effectively exercise your leadership skills within the climate change space? Please, feel free to look for this model on our website and learn a little bit more about it and examples of how we've been implementing this model in other parts of the world. I'll now hand over to Diana to take us to the next part of the session.
Thank you, Ellen. Yes. I will now end our part of the presentation by giving some concrete ideas of how you can practically get involved in youth adaptation leadership. May, can you move to the next slide? Either through shaping climate adaptation policies at the national or even the global level, or through influencing audiences at the local level, by how you can, things that you need to consider when you would like to start designing your own climate adaptation action. I'll start by giving some examples of how you can engage in climate adaptation policy processes at the global level and the national level. And as a young climate advocate, if you want to engage in this, it's important that you know about the different elements of these policies, so you also know how you can help shaping them. And you may have heard of the Paris Agreement, which was adopted under the UNFCCC in 2015. This is the first climate deal that sets out common obligations for all countries. And it aims to keep the increase of global temperatures well below 2 degrees above pre-industrial levels, but even making efforts to limit it to 1.5 degrees. And the Paris Agreement requires each country to submit an updated nationally determined contribution, or NDC, every 5 years. And this is basically a national climate action plan that sets out what the country will do to cut its emissions and to adapt to climate change impacts. So in the EU, actually the European Union submits an NDC on behalf of all the member states to the UNFCCC, but individual EU countries must live up to those commitments through their domestic activities. And countries are now in the process to submit the third round of updated NDCs, which need to be even more progressive and more ambitious than current NDCs, because it may be the last opportunity to put the world on track, to stay in line with the Paris Agreement's 1.5 degrees goal. So if you're interested to engage in global climate policies, then we encourage you to read up on the Paris Agreement and on the NDC processes, and to find out how you can participate in this in your own country. Or start advocating for creating mechanisms that allow young people to input as well. Next slide, please, May. There are also many other ways that you can engage and make your voice heard, also locally. And Ellen mentioned this as well, that it's important to build up your own knowledge and be an expert, so you can start monitoring your country's climate reports. to stay informed. These are assessments that include data and analysis on how a country is performing, but what the climate risks are, the level of emissions, the adaptation needs. And you can find these online, maybe published by your national government, but also on websites by like the World Bank or the World Meteorological Organization or Climate Watch. And each country that is a party to the UNFCCC must submit so-called national communications. These reports highlight also priorities of the countries and objectives around adaptation and mitigation. So yeah, you can find those as well on the UNFCCC website, and we encourage you to read them. And then, of course, you can share what you learn about climate change and adaptation actions on your social networks. You can organize awareness-raising campaigns to encourage public understanding, or start a petition for a climate change adaptation policy issue. And yeah, I mentioned it before, but another way, of course, to engage is also by training young people around you on climate advocacy, but also on climate change more broader, and climate adaptation issues, so that the movement continues to grow. And you can find a lot more information on this as well in Module 6 of the toolkit. Module 7 of the toolkit demonstrates how you can identify policy gaps and how you can then design your own advocacy strategy through an 8 steps process. And some tactics that you can use to influence different audiences in your community are, for instance, that you can send letters to your local representatives and local politicians highlighting your or your group's stance on key climate change adaptation issues. You can, of course, design and put up posters in your neighborhood to let people know what you think and to get them talking about the climate crisis and the issues that you're advocating for. You can write a press release and communicate with local media and let them know your core aims. And you can hand out flyers or post letters through people's doors. And then in Module 8 of the toolkit, you can learn more about how you can develop your own climate adaptation action and how you can implement this in your community. I won't go into all the steps there, but I just wanted to highlight that to be successful with this and in your mission, it is really important to plan your approach. Ellen also mentioned it, preparation is key, and to inform yourself and to build relationships for collaboration. So questions to ask yourself before you start should include, what is already happening in your community around climate adaptation? Who else might be working on similar issues? And can you find allies and ways to collaborate with others, other groups, other peers? Do you have the necessary technical and financial resources? And if not, what can you do to improve that? Do you have the capacity? And how will your actions actually impact the community? I think we're okay time-wise. So I would like to end our section today by doing a quick exercise with you using CARE's visioning tool. Ellen referred to it as well in the Power Within framework. But this is a useful tool and it can help communities or groups or youth organizations to develop a shared vision of positive change in relation to community-based adaptation actions. So I would like to ask you to close your eyes for a few minutes and imagine yourself being, let's say, in Brussels or in any other large city where you are boarding a fast train that is bringing you back to the village or the place where you grew up in or currently live. You can choose, but then in the future. So let's say in the year 2045, 20 years from now. So again, close your eyes and imagine that you are hopping on this train and you're taking a comfortable seat in this double deck train. So you're on the upper deck next to the window. And autumn is kicking in Europe, and you can see and you can hear the torrential rain hitting the windows. A weather warning was actually issued today, and there are very strong winds, which is causing the train to be a little bit shaky. And there are many leaves on the tracks that have fallen out of the trees. And earlier today, a tree even fell over and blocked the rail track, which has created some issues and is causing for disruptions in the timetable and the train service. And halfway the journey, the heating system also stops working. So you're pulling your coat a little bit closer around you and you try to stay warm. But after a long journey, you finally arrive at your destination. And when you get off the train, you take a look around you to see what your community looks like now in 2045. So what are the houses like? What are the people doing? What are they doing for a living? And do you see children? Where are they playing? What are the families like in 2045? What does the land and the natural environments around the community look like? Do you see forests? Do you see rivers, fields? Maybe you're close to the sea. What's the infrastructure? The roads, the medical services, the schools, and how has this changed from how you remember it, or maybe what remained the same? And how is your community impacted by climate change? And what might have already been done to better adapt to these impacts? I would now like to ask you to open your eyes again. And I would normally ask you to now make a drawing of anything you liked from this dreaming and visioning exercise. And this will be your homework to do after this session ends. And if we were now in the same space, or let's say you're doing this with friends or in your community or with your youth group, then we could put, or you could put up all the drawings on the wall and look at what everybody saw in the future and what they put up on the drawing, and try to identify the visions that you have in common, as well as the differences, and together try to identify opportunities for climate actions. We really encourage you to maybe do this at some point together with friends. And hopefully it will inspire you to identify where you would like to get started in your own climate adaptation journey. Thank you.
Thank you, Diana. Thanks a lot to you and Ellen. That was really, really nice. Very inspiring presentation, and I hope you also enjoyed the exercise. So just a quick reminder to all of you, you can indeed submit questions to our speakers, and you can do that through Slido. So you see you have the slide here with the QR codes as well. You can go on the website and with the hashtag, you can indeed submit our questions, your questions, to our panelists and speakers, and then for the Q&A moment that we will have a bit later. But now I would also like to invite Aurora, our Climate Pact ambassadors, to the stage, that together with Martin later on, they will share their personal journey and insights as Climate Pact ambassador and young leader. So Aurora, I see you on the screen and the floor is yours.
Yes, thank you, Chiara, and also thank you to the Climate Pact Secretariat for this invitation. It's really an honor to be with all of you today. So my name is Aurora. I'm a Climate Pact ambassador from Italy, but I was also Pact ambassador in Belgium. I currently work as Senior Officer Sustainable Energy for All, which is a UN initiative working to promote energy access and also ensure energy transitions across the world. And I'm particularly excited about this session because over the past year, I've been very much engaged in the climate and youth space and national and international level. So I'm very happy to share my past experiences, to also share my story, hopefully sharing some ideas for others to start their journey into climate and youth leadership. And then also I will be sharing some tips and lessons learned that that I have drawn from my current path. So to the next slide. Who I am. I briefly introduced two of my titles, let's say. Also I really like to share who I am without any titles. And I was inspired to do this from a previous workshop that I participated in Italy. So I would define, if I had to define myself without any titles, I would define myself as a nature lover, which is very passionate about global challenges and who tries to contribute to a more sustainable world, making a positive impact in different areas. So I will now proceed with how did I get into this climate and youth leadership journey. So as I mentioned, I was very passionate about, I'm very passionate about nature, protecting our environment. So this is why I decided to start studying environmental engineering in Italy. And at university, because I was very interested into raising awareness on environmental and climate related issues, I started by joining some groups that were active on that. And I think if you are a student and you're still pursuing your master or your bachelor's, I think this is a great way to start engaging in this journey. Then after university, I joined some associations, particularly one active in Italy, which is called the Italian Climate Network. And with this association, I started to better understand the international climate policy landscape. And indeed, I took part in my first United Nations Climate Conference, which was COP26 in 2021, which took place in Glasgow, and which is the blue picture that you can see in the slide. And so this is a way, so let's say from the more local engagements, I went to I discovered the international space and the international climate policy making world. And then really a huge window opened there, because I started to bump, and I was also very curious, and I started to bump into many different initiatives that were about climate leadership, climate empowerment, and youth engagement in climate policy making. So one of the first engagements I started with at the international level after COP was that I joined the Italian delegation to the G7 Youth Summit, which is the picture at the bottom, where you can see also the Chancellor of Germany. And with this, I was head of the Italian delegation, and it was very interesting to me because what we did is that we really went through the G7 process. We ran consultation at local level. We, in Italy, then with the other delegates from the G7 countries, we prepared a final communique with our recommendations to the G7 leaders. So this was really, really interesting after the climate space, also being into this space, which is not just, it was not just climate, because the recommendation were on different topics, and one of which was climate. After the G7 Youth, I was invited to participate at the Youth for Climate flagship event in New York as a climate youth delegate from Italy. And this was in 2022. And also this was an opportunity together with other youth leader from all over the world. It was an opportunity to speak and engage with policymakers in New York. This event occurred in parallel of the UNGA, which is the UN General Assembly. So, of course, it was a great opportunity also to run meetings with policymakers. And this initiative, by the way, is still running. It now has a different, let's say, objective. Because before then it was really to put people in front of policymakers, and now it's more about supporting youth ideas and projects, so youth leadership with climate solution on the field, on the ground, by providing some grants. Yeah, so those are the initiatives that I kickstarted with into this climate and youth space. Then, of course, I continued my engagement with the Italian association that I mentioned. I was with this association, we were participating at COP, we were running advocacy activity, we were writing articles about what was happening there to speak with, to bring the COP discussions to a broader audience. And then, of course, as I mentioned, that was the beginning. And then I continued in this space. And what really helped me was to find initiatives and find partners that could both teach me, let's say, and also empower me in this space. So, for example, I joined the Climate Pact Ambassadors community, which I won't be speaking much about because I'm sure you all may be familiar with. But then I also became a peer educator of a program which is called the Italy IRENA Peer Education Program, which is about empowering youth on climate and renewable energy action. And thanks to this program, I also started to provide workshops, run trainings to the public, but also in schools in Italy. And yeah, then how it continued also, the third pillar beside climate action trainings and workshop was really about advocacy. So I really, over the past year, really had many engagements as a speaker or moderator, which were really great opportunity to bring my ideas, the youth perspective forward, but also in front of an audience that usually doesn't know and hear much about youth ideas and youth leadership. So I will share now a couple, actually 3 examples of initiatives that I have led. So I started this presentation mentioning to you initiative I joined, and that's how I started. So by joining other initiatives, but then now I will mention initiatives that I've been leading. So back in 2023, it was the year where all nations were halfway towards the achievement of the Sustainable Development Goals to be achieved by 2030. And with other youth, we decided to analyze which Sustainable Development Goals had been achieved, and actually almost none. And so where most action and most progress was needed. So we, with other 3 associations based also in Italy, we analyzed the achievements of the SDGs, and then we had provided clear and concrete actions and proposals to be implemented at national level. And if you're curious, you can scan the QR code, and of course, you should be able to download this policy brief. The next activity I'd like to talk to you about that I personally led is this climate debate, which I organized last year, 2024 in still in Italy, which was in the context of the G7. So in my home town, which is Torino, there was a ministerial meeting of the G7 on climate, energy, and environment. And there was a call for events to bring the G7 discussion to a broader audience. So I said, okay, why not? Let's propose an event, and it was approved. And it was, in the end, a great success. In this case, I decided to partner. I didn't do everything alone, of course. I had to, let's call them co-pilots in this mission. And we decided to partner with the Polytechnic of Turin, which is the university where I studied, and other initiatives to really build on what was already existing. And also, I'd like to flag that we have been using the Climate Pact materials. So the event had two main sessions. A first session was a high-level a high-level segment, and it was really high level. We were very lucky to have the Minister of Environment, the Special Envoy of Italy for Climate Change, and also some local municipality leaders. And the second part, it was a session where participants were the protagonists. So by using the European Climate Pact Peer Parliament materials, people engaged and were able to provide solution for the city of Turin. And you, when you will see the slide afterward, you will be also able to download the final documents. The last activity that I'd like to talk about, and then I think I have also almost finished my time, it's about the UN Climate Conference and possible engagements. So you will hear everything about this in the upcoming EU Climate Action Academy webinar. So I won't be too long on this, but what I would like to mention is that just beside the local activities, you can, of course, also engage at international level. And also, let's remind ourselves that youth is not just youth because of the age, it's really stakeholdership. So youth were recognized as a major group in 1992 to be involved in sustainable development activities. So it's really not, you know, just people saying, okay, we want this and that, but we are recognized and we have a voice as youth people. So when you are at COP, there is the Yango, which is the group really representing the youth voices. And they do many different things that you will hear everything in the next webinar. But I'll just mention a few things that I've been leading or part of to really try to move the discussion between youth and policymakers. When you're there, you can organize meetings with the head of delegations and youth leaders to really raise your voice, raise your points. You can participate in dialogues, different events to advance action on specific points, and of course influence decision makers. There are many different ways. As you can see, there are also protests at COP, as you can see in the picture. But also just by, you know, talking with a delegate, you can also influence. The next slide. So yeah, going on now on the lessons learned and what I can recommend, or maybe things I wish I had known before. The But I would start with the first one, which is really try to find your passion. If you want to start your activity, your engagement, be more active in this space, really try to find what is it that drives you, and also what is the mission that you want to pursue. And I'm saying this I think this is very important, because you will find yourself spending lots of energy, lots of time. Most of this time is volunteering, especially when you start. So you really need to be passionate about it. The second tip is really try to engage and find your partners. You can build on something already in place, as I did, for example, for organizing this climate debate in the context of the G7. I collaborated with university, with other local partners that really provided different activities in the event. And also, of course, try to work together, especially when you start in this space. There are lots of young people that maybe the space is new for you. At some point, you will see also there is competition. I think this should not be the driver. The driver is your mission, your passion, and really try to work together. As I mentioned, it's really energy demanding and time consuming. So if you have partners, it's going to be easier. Yeah, I'll be quick, one more minute. I see Chiara. Okay, and then this was already mentioned before, but really learn from first to build your capacity, but also learn from others that have already been in this space that can provide tips. And also be mindful that yes, we are youth, we are energy, we have great ideas, but most of the time we speak with people that have been in this space maybe for 20, 30 years. So also let's recognize their inputs and their tips. And then, of course, be smart and take the first step. And I think I want to especially say this to girls, because I think over, we all know history has been written by a specific genre. So I really, for girls, I think, or for minorities, really don't hesitate to take the first step, be also if it's a small one. Last slide. Yeah, just wanted to flag small step count, and your influence is really bigger than what you think. And I put this picture, which I took recently. I was in a beach and I started to collect waste. And okay, it's a small action, but actually, besides saving turtles, we are also there are people watching you, and maybe next time they will also do it. So this is a way also to influence. That's it. If you have any questions, I'm happy to connect. You'll find me on LinkedIn, Instagram, and X, and also by email, of course. And yeah, happy to work together. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Aurora. It was a very inspiring presentation, and indeed we will have also a moment for question from the audience. We are receiving quite some, so see you later. Indeed, in that regards. But now I would like to invite Martin to the stage. Another indeed ambassador of the Climate Pact. So Martin, we want to know more about your journey as well. So please go ahead.
Hello, everyone. It's a pleasure to address you all. My name is Martin, and I'm a Climate Pact Ambassador. I'm excited to share with you our story of how we are empowering Bulgarian youth for climate action and leadership. And on the next slide, you will see me and Sveti. She's also a Climate Pact Ambassador, and in July 2024, we founded the first green youth organization in Bulgaria, Youth for a Green Future. And over the past year, we've grown into a vibrant community and also quite successful one of passionate young people from across the country. And during my talk, I want to share with you what we've achieved, the lessons we've learned, and to inspire you to be a climate leader in your own community. So on the next slide, I will start with some local context. So Bulgaria is one of the EU countries hit hardest by the climate crisis. This year alone, we faced heat waves, devastating wildfires, actually the largest in Europe, along with severe droughts, water shortages, and recently floods that caused huge destruction. As a result, 1% of Bulgaria's economy has been wiped out by climate disasters this year. So for us, the climate crisis isn't a distant threat. It's reshaping our reality in affecting our daily lives seriously. Moving on. Young people see what's happening and they are deeply concerned about their future. So across Europe and in Bulgaria as well, data consistently shows that young people are the generation that ranks climate change as the most serious issue we face. And young people are calling for stronger climate action. But here's the paradox. Young people care the most, yet often they have the least power to shape decisions that affect them. For example, young people make up 25% of Europe's population, but they only hold 10% of the seats in the European Parliament. And that's just the visible part of the problem. Across all levels of decision-making, from local councils to national parliaments and even in the private sector, young people are often sidelined or even excluded when it comes to positions of power. So this gap between commitment and influence is exactly what we're trying to change. Moving on. Youth for a Green Future was born in this context with the mission to build and sustain a community of active young people, to promote their civic and political participation, to develop their leadership skills, and to popularize green values among Bulgarian youth. And this photo is from our very first event where we brought young people to the Bulgarian Parliament to meet and exchange ideas with members of Parliament. And that's how it all began, with one event, one idea, and the belief that young people deserve a voice in shaping their future. On the next slide, you will see also how we are achieving this mission, mainly through the power of non-formal education, but also advocacy and community organizing. So we aim to create spaces where young people can learn together, exchange ideas, and build the confidence to act. So over the past year, we've organized seminars, workshops, academies, and summer camp to explore diverse topics from mental health to biodiversity and climate justice. And what makes these experiences powerful is that the participants leave not only with new knowledge and skills, but also with a sense of belonging, confidence, and purpose. And on the next slide, you will see photos from our Green Youth Academy, the first of its kind in Bulgaria, where participants explore topics such as ecofeminism and intersectionality while enjoying these colorful plant-based bowls. So all of our events are vegan or at least vegetarian and plastic-free. And you can see that that's something participants really appreciate. It's a powerful way to experience sustainability in action and to practice what you preach. It doesn't take much, but the message is really important, that our daily choices matter and that leadership begins with example. And on the next slide, you will see probably my favorite event that we've organized so far. This was an Erasmus-funded project about young people and eco-emotions, which took place in Vitosha Mountains, just outside of Sofia, right next to this beautiful waterfall. So we explored how young people feel about their relationship with nature and about the climate crisis. So it was really a personal and transformative experience for all participants. And because I'm a psychologist myself, on the next slide, I will share a little bit more about what eco-emotions are. So most people, and especially young people, feel a whole spectrum of emotions related to the environment. Positive ones like inspiration and gratitude, but also difficult ones like climate anxiety, sadness, or frustration when they see nature being destroyed. So these emotions are not only something private, but they're also a social phenomenon. And in every society, there are norms about which emotions are acceptable and which not. And unfortunately, eco-emotions are often dismissed or mocked as exaggerations. And that stigma around them makes people feel lonely, isolated, and misunderstood when they experience them. So that's why it's so important to create safe spaces where people can openly talk and share their experiences and listen to others with empathy. And when we do this, we not only support each other, but we inspire those around us to reflect on their own values and their own relationship with nature. And most importantly, to take action, because action is often the best cure for negative emotions and eco-anxiety, because it's not only good for the planet, it's good for society and for our own well-being. And to wrap up on the final slide, I will share with you my 3 key lessons on how to be a climate leader in your own community. So the first one is to lead by example. So we people are social creatures, and our behavior influences others far more than we realize. So every small action you take, if you carry a reusable bottle, cut down on meat, or just speak up about the local issue in your community, this will send a powerful message to others. So change always starts with us. So to change the world, we have to change ourselves first. The second one is to empower others. So leadership is not about creating followers, it's about creating more leaders, and that's what we're also trying to do. So share your skills with others, lift them up, and create space where others can grow and express themselves. Because when you empower others, your impact multiplies. And we don't just create projects, we build communities and encourage and give other purpose and meaning. And finally, mobilize for change. So what makes a leader different from an influencer is the ability to turn this awareness into collective action. So organize, bring people together and build networks and find strength in community. Because anyone can raise awareness, but only real leaders can turn that awareness into momentum and that momentum into change. So wherever you are, find a climate organization in your area or build your own, because together we can do far more than we can ever do alone. And last but not least, the EU is there to support you. So most of our work has been funded either by EU projects such as Erasmus or by the Council of Europe. So there are many programs to empower young people to take these initiatives. So be bold, take that first step and make your vision a reality. Thank you very much.
Thanks to you, Martin. Thanks a lot to you. And I invite you to stay actually here with me because we have our Q&A moment. So I also invite Diana, Ellen, and Aurora to turn on your camera as well, so we can see you. Okay, perfect. Yeah, you're all here. Very great. So we received quite some questions actually. So I will ask you to be concise so we can reply to a few, given the time. So first, starting with Diana and Ellen, actually, we received a question through Slido saying whether you have any advice on how to address fatigue and burnout of people indeed taking climate action. It seems that it is affecting now more and more individuals, particularly on the most engaged ones. So do you have any practical tips or advice to give?
Ellen, do you want to take this one?
Thank you so much for that question. And I think, burnout is a very real challenge as far as activism is concerned. I think a quick recommendation that I have is to break down the work and share responsibilities among young people so that it's not one person pursuing an objective or activity, but to find a way of planning the work such that there's shared responsibility, which helps to spread the energy across a number of different people. And then secondly is to also leverage the power of networks, connect with other networks so that we are achieving our work not only through ourselves individually, but also finding ways of advancing our goals through others as well. In that way, we try to manage the burnout and fatigue challenge. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Ellen. Very practical and concise indeed. Thank you. There is another question, maybe more for Aurora and Martin, our Climate Pact ambassador. So we have some people in the audience who are just finishing their master, their studies, and they're now looking on how they can contribute to advancing climate action. Do you have any practical tips also on your side based on your own experience? Maybe we go first with Aurora and then with Martin, if that's all right.
Sure, and thanks for the question. I think the most practical thing you can do is try to find which area you want to contribute in climate action. The easiest thing maybe is find wherever you live some local groups. If you are more interested in, I don't know, waste, maybe you can help some local activities on waste reduction, etc. But also there are some, you can start from local level and then look at EU level organization, especially if you're interested more in policy, climate policy. And then, of course, you can grow more, broader also at international, with more international associations and organizations. And I'm also happy to share some names if this person wants to follow up separately of specific organizations.
Thanks, Aurora. Starting with the European Climate Pact, right?
Exactly.
Martin, yes.
I mean, I completely agree. There's probably an environmental organization in your area or country, so look up what opportunities are already there, because there's more than we expect, and join depending on your interest. So that's my advice.
Thank you very much, Martin. And thanks to you all, really. Unfortunately, looking at the time, we need to slowly wrap up. But I want to thank you very, very much. All of you has been very, indeed, inspiring presentation. So thanks a lot. And I also want to thank everyone in the audience as well, not only for submitting the question, but for staying with us until now, whether you are young people, teachers, or your work interact with young people. We really hope that you can use these learnings from today to inspire your own communities and network and really make a real change. But before we close, I want to remind you of a few things, because some of you actually ask, two things. So first of all, how can I make connections? How can I engage with other people who are actually interested in making a change? So we invite you to visit the Climate Pact website. We have also an interactive map there where you can also locate our ambassadors and partner organization and really connect with them. Not only the map, but we also have a lot of other different things that you can also see in the slide. So just follow the QR code there that will lead you to the website indeed. Then I would also like to remind you, as mentioned before, that we have application for ambassadors and partners, which are closing soon. deadline is at the end of the month, so 31st of October. So if you really want to take your climate action to the next level, you can join us and being an ambassador and a Pact partner if you want. And last but not least, I would also like to remember you to, that was one of the other questions, what about COP30, which is coming up? So we have actually a deep dive session following this one on the 6th of November, where you will indeed learn more about youth leading the way to COP30, indeed. So please don't forget to register. And last, indeed, this is the last one on the list. We also have, of course, all the courses of our Climate Action Academy, which are now available on the EU Academy platform. So you can go there. There will also be a way to get certificates to participate into these courses. So you can go there, follow the course, and you will get indeed also the certificates. There will be also this course, which we will put shortly also on the platform. And I think that's it. So I thank you very much, all of you, our speaker, organizers, but also indeed participants here for attending the session, and see you very soon with a lot of new activities from Climate Pacts.